When asked during an interview if he thought that video games were a threat to the written word, professional procrastinator George R. R. Martin claimed that video games cannot yet be classified as art. Clearly, the man has never played Hollow Knight. Team Cherry's 2017 Metroidvania is nothing short of a masterpiece. The gameplay is tight, the animation is gorgeous, and its approach to storytelling is profoundly nuanced. A sense of Sonder pervades each one of my playthroughs. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the Dictionary of Obscure Sorrows, Sonder is the realization that each random passerby is living a life as vivid and complex as your own, populated with their own ambitions, friends, routines, and worries. There is no such thing as common knowledge. Shared experiences aren't real. Everyone filters the world through a unique lens, and even when we all have access to the same information, people will still come to different conclusions, which is a fact of life that is simultaneously marvelous and maddening. Hollow Knight subtly reinforces this idea each time you press play. No two people will have the same experience with the game because Team Cherry constructed their magnum opus in a way that guarantees variety. The layout of the Forgotten Crossroads is a good example of this phenomenon. It's the first real area you have access to when you descend into the ruins of Hallownest, but the level is designed to allow for directionless exploration because the developers implicitly trust you to figure things out as you go. At some point, you'll come to this fork in the path. You can either continue to the right, or you can venture upwards. The first boss you fight is contingent upon this simple choice. If you go right, you stumble across the Gruzmother. If you go up, you'll likely come face to face with the False Knight. Both bosses are designed to introduce players to the combat mechanics, and though beating the False Knight is more important for progressing into future areas, the player has the freedom to maneuver the game as they please. This freedom continues to manifest itself as you travel deeper and deeper into the kingdom through other simple choices you don't even realize you're making. You don't have to save the grubs. You can use the simple keys at your discretion. And if you care about preserving your sanity, you shouldn't save Zote. Team Cherry tricks you into being a good Samaritan, and then they continually punish you for this folly for the rest of that game file. Just let the Vengefly eat him. You'll thank me 5 Pantheons later when you don't have to fight an extra boss during an already impossibly difficult task. Aside from Zote, all of the non-playable characters are a joy to converse with. You spend a decent chunk of this game isolated and alone, so you're more inclined to appreciate the few friendly faces you cross paths with on your journey. The game rewards you for being kind to these characters with mask shards, charms, and money, but interacting with them feels like its own reward. Much like life itself, the game is more fulfilling when you authentically engage with the people around you. And though some bugs aren't worth your effort, everyone has something invaluable to offer you: perspective. What's magnificent about Hollow Knight's story is that it's never explicitly told to the player. If you want to understand what happened to this world or what the deeper implications of odd events are, then you have to talk to its inhabitants and piece together that information yourself. Team Cherry has gone on record to say that they're okay with players not finding everything they've hidden in the game. In Hollow Knight, your output is directly tied to your input, and though assembling the puzzle takes time, I personally think it's a worthy endeavor. The fact that there are 5 different endings for players to unlock is this philosophy taken to its most logical conclusion. Despite what the adorable art style might make you think, Hollow Knight is, at its core, a tragedy, and observant players are rewarded with broken hearts when they uncover the truth about Hallownest's history. The first and most common ending comes when you've completed the surface-level task of killing the Dreamers and unlocking the Black Egg Temple, where the titular Hollow Knight awaits you. Halfway through this climactic final battle, your opponent starts fighting himself. Like most of the kingdom's remaining citizens, the Hollow Knight appears to be yet another victim of the infection seeping through Hallownest's ruins, and when you defeat it, you absorb that infection and take its place in chains. The game ends, and you're left feeling, for lack of a better term, hollow. In order to unlock the other 2 endings associated with the Hollow Knight, the player has to collect some special items and fight bosses that are otherwise optional. Of the 40 charms in the game, the hardest to unlock is, without question, the King Soul. Part of its intrinsic difficulty is the fact that it's broken in half, and much like the game's lore, the player has to be the one to assemble it. The 2 halves are found on opposite sides of the map, one in the Queen's Gardens and the other in the White Palace. The latter is the most challenging area in the entire game. To access it, a player has to master combat tactics, and to find the fragment hidden in this dream, one has to suffer through brutal sections of platforming. The only thing that keeps me from flying into a Sawblade-induced rage is Christopher Larkin's soothing score. The charm's name reflects the identities of its owners, the White Lady and the Pale King, who are the former monarchs of Hallownest, and as it turns out, your parents. If you wear the fully assembled King Soul while descending into the Abyss, everything snaps into sharp focus, and all of the information you've gathered is radically recontextualized. The Abyss is a deeply disturbing location. Found at the bottom of the ancient basin, the warning sign placed at its only entrance doesn't sufficiently warn the player of the horror that awaits them down below. Over the course of the game, you've likely come across several characters that bear a striking resemblance to your knight. The Corpse and Hornet's Green Path Arena, the broken vessel that guards the Monarch Wings, the Hollow Knight itself, and even Hornet looks vaguely similar. These are your siblings, and the Abyss is a mass grave for all of the fellow vessels that did not make it out, because the Pale King deemed them to be tainted. In his efforts to end the infection plaguing Hallownest, the king sought a pure vessel to contain the radiance, one that couldn't have a mind to think, a will to break, or a voice to cry suffering. It needed to be completely hollow, but the champion he chose was doomed to fail because of an idea instilled. By showing his offspring affection, the Pale King's vessel was no longer pure. After this revelation, the King's Soul becomes the Void Heart charm, one the player can never unequip. If you return to the Black Egg Temple, Hornet stands at the front door, and your half-sister offers to give you assistance in the fight when the moment is opportune. If you defeat the Hollow Knight with her at your side, you unlock the second and arguably worst ending, Sealed Siblings. You still wind up in the Hollow Knight's former bindings, but this time, Hornet is locked inside too, and there's only a small sense of hope that your efforts will successfully contain the infection. The game's true ending, Dream No More, is unlocked by dream-nailing the subdued Hollow Knight, defeating the Radiance, and bringing peace to the vessel still trapped at the bottom of the Abyss. These three conclusions have a lot to say about the cyclical nature of suffering. The Radiance and the Pale King are essentially godlike beings in this universe, and their conflict with one another poisoned future generations and laid waste to a world populated with innocent bystanders. Herein lies the game's ultimate message. By not engaging with the world at large, you're more than likely to repeat the cycles of torment wrought upon you. The traumas that haunt us are as unique as fingerprints, and only after identifying the source of our anguish and garnering all the facts regarding it do we stand a chance at breaking those toxic patterns. Hollow Knight redefines what it means to be artful with each carefully animated frame. Since almost everything in this game is optional, the moments we find meaningful are all the more revealing about our natures as individuals. As much as I loved beating the first 4 Pantheons and defeating all the Dream Warriors, my favorite memories from this game aren't associated with any particular fights. When I replay Hollow Knight, I make sure to listen to Marissa sing, to sit at the Blue Lake shore with Quirrell, to claim the Pale King's throne as my own and bask in the somber silence. Broken as the world may be, we owe it to ourselves to take a few moments to marvel at its majesty. And to me, this is what an enriching experience entails. And I can only hope that Silksong offers these same avenues for experience whenever Team Cherry finally decides to release it.